Hey, how you doing, guys? I hope you're uh, staying safe during the big pandemic. I hope you're all enjoying the pandemic. Um, all this is new for me, and it's new for you. I know that. But I thought, when we got back from break, we were gonna, uh, finish up Durkheim and then move on to. I wanted to spend a little time on Herbert Spencer. So I thought just to test this stuff out today, I would talk a little bit about Emil Durkheim and his theory of religion. Um, and we've talked about so far, we've done, you know, division of labor in society. We've done rules of the sociological method, and we've done suicide. And as you all can remember, that Emil Durkheim had two main concerns in his career. One of them was to understand the consequences of the Industrial Revolution, understand the consequences of the coming of modernization, and the other one was to make the case for sociology. And so when we get to Elementary Forms of Religious Life, which he published in 1912, all that stuff comes together. Okay, all that stuff comes together. Um, he's addressing the problem of order, what holds society together, and one of the things he's going to look at is religion. He's a functionalist, and he wants to understand the function of religion, and in particular, he's going to look at the function of something called totemism among the Arunta people of Australia. Okay, this is a time when there is all kinds of ethnographic data being done by anthropologists and all coming back to Europe. And Durkheim doesn't do any field work of his own, but he is looking at this. He's looking at this data, right? This information that's coming back in the form of ethnography, and he is analyzing it from the point of view of sociology. And he wants to figure out, again, what does religion do? He's not approaching religion as a theological question. He's approaching it as a sociological question. What is religion? What is its purpose? What is its function as a social institution? The main point that he's going to make, and I'm going to go to my notes here. I'm not going to pretend like that I'm making all this up on the spot. But the main thing that he's going to say is that religion is more or less a collective representation of the human experience. Maybe one way to think about this is, prior to there being natural science, that the way that people understood the universe was through the perspective of religion. They used religion to explain all kinds of natural phenomena. And I think what he's sort of arguing is that, well, without a social science, people will do the same thing, right? When they don't have a science of society, what they're going to turn to try to explain social phenomena, right? Not natural phenomena, but social phenomena, is religion. Okay, so that's one of the things I think he means when he's saying that religion is a collective representation of the human experience. That religion represents society, right? That when we are talking about religion, what we're really talking about is society, and it's our way of explaining how we're all connected to each other, right, through our relationship to society. Religion becomes, right, what he called our collective consciousness. Remember that? Collective consciousness, our awareness that we belong to a common community. And it also, because religion also involves value systems and codes of morality and ideas of evil and good and all that stuff, that it is also our collective, it's an expression, maybe I could put it that way, that religion is an expression of our collective conscience, okay? And remember that both of those things, collective consciousness and collective conscience, go into solidarity, all right? So religion becomes a way of understanding how people would understand how they're connected to each other, how they form a solid community, all right? It becomes the basis of, religion becomes the basis of that moral consensus that is the foundation of society. And he's looking at a people who live in Australia called the Arunta. That's Arunta. He's looking at the Arunta people. And he is on purpose, right, focusing on a religion like that, their type of religion. He understands them as a so-called primitive society. In other words, they are a very simple society. So they don't have a whole lot of institutional specialization. They don't have a highly specialized division of labor. It would be closer to what he would think of as belonging to a mechanical division of labor, a mechanical society. And so that means that in those kinds of societies, those hunting and gathering type of societies, that religion is then all-encompassing. It becomes one of the organizing principles of the entire society. So religion, again, lacking a social science, religion arises from, for him, a need to understand. Humans have a need to understand things and to explain things. And lacking a social science, the kind of explanation they are going to turn to is going to be religion. And religion also arises not only from our need to explain everything, but also arises from our need to be sociable, right? Our need to be connected to each other. So how is he going to define religion? Well, the way he defines religion is like this. He says that religion is the totality of beliefs and sentiments. So sentiments would have to do with like deep-seated feeling, deep-seated emotion, beliefs and sentiments of all sorts relative to the relations of human beings with a being or beings whose nature he regarded as superior to his own. So in other words, what religion is are these beliefs and these sentiments that are relevant to beliefs in the supernatural, right? Beliefs in supernatural beings, beliefs in gods, and so on. Okay. Everybody all right with that? You okay so far? I hope so. And so the elementary forms of religious life is his study, his in-depth study, where he is analyzing, again, the case of the Arunta people, who are an Aboriginal tribe that live in Australia. And he believed that the religion, the type of religion that the Arunta followed was a very basic, in other words, an elementary form of religious life, an elementary form of religion within society. And so he can look at it without all the other noise, right, of modern society. So it becomes a kind of model for him that he could apply, right, to understanding religion in every society, right, including European society. Let me wet my whistle here a little bit. Okay, all right. So religion now for Durkheim does not represent something that is divinely inspired, because remember, he's talking about religion as a social institution. He's not talking about theology. So he's not talking about it in a divine sense. He's not talking about it as somehow supernaturally inspired. But he is looking at religion as a social institution, right? As a product of society. Societies produce religion. because religion serves an important function. Religion is a social fact, right? So you find it everywhere in every society. So religion is a social fact. And it is a product of our system of relationships to each other. Okay? It's a reflection of those social relationships. So he thought that by analyzing the Arunta, right, that we could identify the common themes emphasized by all religion. What do all religions emphasize? And what effects do those things have on the lives of the members of society? All right, everybody good? So what about these Arunta? Well, the Arunta people are hunter-gatherers, and they practice a religion called totemism. So maybe you've heard of that before. Maybe you've heard about, at least maybe you've heard about like a totem pole. So, what is totemism? Well, totemism is a very simple, even, if I'm talking kind of 19th century way of talking, it's a primitive religion, primitive form of religious system. And within totemism, certain things are thought of as sacred, right? Certain things are thought of as sacred emblems. A totem is a sacred emblem of a group. So a totem, in this case, the totem is going to be a sacred emblem of a clan, okay? If I were going to put this in kind of modern terms, I would say, the closest thing that we get to like a totem would be the American flag. The American flag, it represents, right, all of our nation. It's in fact a sacred emblem, right, of the nation. And totems are a lot like that. Okay. In fact, I want to go to, I can find it here. I gave you this article, this chapter from this book on Emil Durkheim, and you maybe want to go to, let's see what page he's on here for that. Go to page 91. Okay, so on page 91, that's where the authors, Pip and Bradbury, start talking about religion. So he's looking at the Arunta. Every clan in Arunta society has a totem, and the way that the authors define a totem is they say, well, a totem is an object in natural life which Arunta clan members believe to be special to them. So every clan is represented by a totem. It might be an animal or whatever, okay? In fact, the totem is so special that according to Durkheim, I'm reading again, so that according to Durkheim, they impose on it sacred significance or religious significance, all right? On rare but important occasions, the authors say, the whole of the clan, including members of many different bands, gathers to worship the totem. In addition, during their day-to-day life as band members, whenever they come across their particular totem, they treat it with reverence, right, as a kind of sacred object. So this totem is regarded as something sacred, and it's treated with very special reverence. Okay? Even the way that we think about how we're supposed to handle any sacred emblem, right? All right, so let's go to page 92, and the authors say that Durkheim wants to identify the function, right, that totemism plays or performs within the Arunta social system. And he says this, right, that living such a precarious life, right, without hospitals or other kinds of institutions like that, which are found in more advanced European societies, the Arunta people, above all, need each other to survive. They depend on each other to survive. That's mechanical solidarity. There's that mutual aid that they all they need. They rely on each other. Okay. The obligation, or the groups to which the Arunta belong are their lifeline. The obligations others feel to help them when they need it are their only hope. In these circumstances, argues Durkheim, what is needed is some means of ensuring that the group remains important in the eyes of the Arunta individual. So something has to promote a loyalty to the group, and in fact, a feeling among everybody that the group is more important than me. Okay, the group is more important than the individual. And the answer to that problem then for integration, social integration, the answer to that problem for the Arunta is totemism. Totemism brings together separate groups within Arunta society. The totem, as Durkheim puts it, I'm reading again, this is again page 92, the totem is, as Durkheim puts it, the flag of the clan. Okay, it is a symbol of those people in Arunta society with whom band members do not live, but whom they look upon as relatives. They are special people who should be helped and supported whenever necessary. Because of the totem, the group symbol, its members are reminded of the group's existence when they might otherwise forget it. On the ceremonial occasions when the whole group gathers to worship the totem, a collective reaffirmation of its importance to them takes place. As Durkheim puts it, by worshiping the totem, this is an important line here, right? By worshiping the totem, the Arunta are really worshiping the group. So the totem comes to represent society. The totem comes to represent the community and people's obligation to it. And so he continues, or your authors continue. The function of totemism then is to integrate the Arunta social system, to draw its parts together and to sustain it as a whole. It is, in Durkheim's terms, an instrument of social solidarity. Clearly, totemism is here being explained not in terms of what it is, what the content of its doctrines or beliefs are. We've got to be clear, that's not what he's doing. He doesn't want to talk about what their beliefs are, what their doctrines are. What he wants to do is talk about what totemism does. What does totemism do for the entire group? Okay. So clearly, totemism is here being explained not in terms of what it is, what the content of its doctrines are, but of what it does. Right? That is, the function it performs for the social system. Okay, so what is the function that it performs for the social system? It brings everybody together, right? It brings everybody together. They rally around that totem because it represents their relationship to each other. All right. So, again, right, the Arunta are hunter-gatherer people, and they practice this totemism. The totem, whether it's a plant or an animal or whatever it might be, is regarded as a sacred emblem of the clan. And wrapped all into that are also different kinds of moral aspects, right? What we owe to each other, what the people in the group owe to each other. So there are these moral aspects of totemism as well. And they're represented by the community sharing, right? Sharing emotions, sharing these deep feelings, sharing rituals. You know, and this kind of the tie that people have to each other is reinforced through the rituals that they perform. Okay, the same way that our ties to each other are reinforced through all the various rituals that we perform. You know, through religion. You know, just think of yourself going to church, you know, and what the role of ritual is and how it reinforces our feeling of belonging to a common community. So he concludes then, right, that the Arunta religion for the Arunta, totemism for the Arunta, is nothing more than the collective representations of the overwhelming power of society, right? Durkheim said that we attach sacred significance to that which we do not understand. So, lacking a social science through which we could understand how society works, we do it in some other way. We do it through religion. Just like when we don't understand, uh, you know, what moves the planets around, we explain it through religion. We do the same thing with society. So religion provides people with a source of solidarity. It's a basis of solidarity, and you should be flashing back, to the French Revolution and be thinking about Robespierre and how he understood with the collapse of. Hold on 1 second. I got a phone call. Yeah, sorry about that. That was my wife. She's at Aldi's and stocking up on stuff. Okay. Anyway, where was I? For Durkheim, right, religion serves this purpose of pulling us all together and giving us a way to explain our relationship to each other. For example, think about how we talk about how we are all united in the body of Christ, or something along those lines. Gives us a way to talk about our commitment to the community and what the power of the community is over us, because we lack a scientific way of understanding that. And for good or ill, he's implying that religion becomes less and less necessary as we develop a scientific understanding of things. Anyway, okay. Religion provides us with meaning. It provides us with meaning. It provides us with social structure. It gives us authority figures. Reinforces morals. That's a very important thing. Religion serves a social control function. It promises to reward us for conformity to society's moral code. It promises that we're going to be punished for violating society's moral code. So it reinforces all of these different social norms that are held collectively within society, and without which there would not be a social order. Now, we also want to understand that to Durkheim, right, religion isn't just fantasy. It's not myth. Religion is real. And it's real in all of these functions it performs. It's real in its social control function. It's real in the fact that it pulls us all together and glues us to each other. It provides us with purpose. It provides us with a way of communicating with other people. And it gathers individuals together to interact and to reaffirm social norms. Okay. So the bottom line. What's the bottom line for Durkheim? The bottom line for Durkheim is that religion functions as one of the bases of social solidarity. And I started to say this before, but you should be flashing back, right, to the French Revolution and to Robespierre, where Robespierre understands, right, that we've abolished the Catholic Church, and we've imprisoned all the priests and all that stuff. But what he realized was that society needed it. Society needed religion, and he offered a substitute for it, a kind of ridiculous substitute for it, but he offered a substitute for it. You get Auguste Comte, right, who understands that with the collapse of religion, because of modernization in the post-French Revolutionary world, that people needed it. People needed ceremony. People needed those values. They had to feel tied to something bigger, or else they would just be alone and adrift. But he has a kind of ridiculous substitution for it too, right? He comes up with that religion of humanity, of which he's going to be the Pope. Yeah, okay, yeah, right. And then Durkheim, being a little less ridiculous and being a little more reasonable about it, simply wants to look at religion, from the point of view of social function. What does it do? What does it do for society? It glues us all together. That's the function that it performs. Now, he will go on to say that in modern society, religion is not the all-encompassing institution that it was for people like the Arunta. We have all kinds of denominations, right? And religion itself is an institution separated from and specialized in its function from other institutions, like the political system and the economic system and the education system, and so on. So religion in a modern society can't pull us together like it used to. Especially when you consider the Protestant Reformation and you consider the coming of Protestantism. And if you recall, right, he talked about suicide, and he said the highest rates of suicide were among Protestants. How come? Because Protestantism emphasized individualism, right, and individuality. And individuality, ironically, a common belief in individualism, in my own self-importance, can't pull us all together, and in fact will keep us from realizing that we are part of a group, or that we are interdependent, and so individualism becomes an obstacle to organic solidarity, that we learned about when we talked about division of labor. All right, so here we go. So that's the bottom line. The bottom line is religion performs the function of creating a basis for solidarity in society. Now here's the last thing that I'm going to talk about, and it's this: that religion, if we look at the Arunta religion, we look at Christianity, we look at Judaism, look at any religion around the world, right, that they have some common characteristics. What do all religions do? Okay, what do all religions do? Well, here's what all religions do, because here's just two key concepts, right? That religion ties together, or excuse me, let me start that again. Religion separates the world, right? All religions separate the world into two realms. All religions separate the world into the sacred and the profane, okay? So what did he mean by the sacred and the profane? Well, by the word profane, what he meant was the ordinary, the world of the ordinary, every day, right? Common things. So that's a profane object, okay? That's a profane object. It's different, isn't it, in the way this is used and in the way we symbolically define it from, let's say, the chalice, right, that a priest uses, okay? The chalice that the priest uses is a sacred object, okay, which is also believed to hold another sacred object, right? For example, wine, which is believed to be the blood of Christ, okay? So we get religion separates the world into sacred and profane. Those objects that are deemed sacred are considered separate, right? And they are considered they need to be kept apart from the profane. What religion does is symbolically to keep the sacred and the profane as two separate things. You can't contaminate the sacred with the profane. And that's the way all religions operate, okay? So let me do a little bit of reading from my notes here to sum this up. What is common among all religions is the separation of life and the world into two categories, the sacred and the profane. Those objects and places deemed sacred are considered part of the spiritual, right? Whereas the profane is the world of the mundane and the ordinary and the commonplace. Religion then, this is going to be Durkheim's definition of religion. Religion then is a unified system of beliefs and practices relative to sacred things, that is to say, things set apart and forbidden, beliefs and practices which unite into one single moral community called a church, all those who adhere to them. I'm going to read that one more time. Here's his definition of religion. Religion is a unified system of beliefs and practices relative to sacred things, that is to say, things set apart and forbidden, beliefs and practices which unite into one single moral community called the church, all those who adhere to them. Now, I would just make a little footnote. And, Durkheim, when he talked about modern society and he talked about the possibility of developing a new overarching form of solidarity, this organic solidarity, which he believed was incomplete so far, right? I would want to talk about things that might take the place of religion, things that might work kind of the same way as religion. And so sometimes we talk about something called pseudo-religion, right, or quasi-religion. Before I use the example of the American flag, right, as a sacred emblem. And, think about it. We have secular religion, right, nationalism as a secular religion with its mythology, our stories about the Pilgrims and our stories about George Washington throwing a dollar across the Potomac River or chopping down a cherry tree, or we have our founding fathers, right, our saints, and we have our sacred documents. We have our Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and the Federalist Papers and, essentially secular scripture, right? And we have our sacred spaces. We have the Lincoln Memorial, and we have, the Vietnam Memorial, right? And we have the White House, and we have, the Capitol, and those places take on an aura of sacredness. And we have our symbols, right? We have, the American flag, right? And we believe that the American flag should be treated with reverence. You don't treat the American flag in the same way that you treat any ordinary piece of cloth, right? You treat it with reverence. There's a special way to fold it. There's all kinds of ways, special ways to display it. I hope you get my drift here, okay? And Durkheim did believe that perhaps nationalism, right, might be a kind of ideology, a kind of belief system that could work in ways that were similar to religion, but weren't exactly like it. All right, well, that's all I got for now. So you guys stay healthy, all right? And we'll be getting back to you. I'm going to figure this whole thing out.